Yes. Just sitting here in this building prompted me to a remembrance of John's excitement. You talked about the acoustics here. I can remember still the day that he told me about his ideas for the construction of this bank, and we looked at the plans. He was so excited about what was going to happen in this building, and that's one of the many times that he got an idea going, and it became ripened into to reality. But John was my friend, and I don't know how many of us can say that here, but he was also my banker. I started out in the loft over the old First National Bank, and as a young lawyer struggling to get a law firm established, and John was so supportive. We became good friends because he was downstairs, and we served on the school board for years together. And when it came time to do one of the projects that he encouraged me into was, of course, he believed in so much the history. He was Fayetteville's historian, but we were looking at the Walker Stone House as a possible restoration project for our law firm, and John wanted to see that happen. And so he came up with the initial financing, and we were able to get a grant from it was a restoration grant. It was a federal grant that the state administered. And got started on that project, and it came time we had to compete for it. So we had to say what we would do with the other 3/4 of the block that we were going to receive. There was an old liquor store building that was abandoned, and there was a terrible old parking lot. And the idea that we came up with was to do townhouses there. Well, when it came time to finance the townhouses, John's genius again was there to tell us, well, there's some tax-free bonds that we can use to do that. And sure enough, it worked out, and we were able to do that phase. But, yes?
Can everybody hear over here? You okay?
Sorry, I'll speak louder. At any rate, it was that sort of ability to connect with a project and to help find a way to get it done. He just, to me, John, he had so many fine qualities, but he was a visionary. He seemed to me to always be light years ahead of the rest of us. And I think that's because he spent so much time thinking about the future of the community, thinking about the things that we needed to do to make it a better place to live. But at the same time, he had such a sense of history about the community, and he wanted to see that preserved. This was an example, I thought, of his insistence on trying to save those things. But one of the things that goodness knows how many things he incubated, and one of those was the Community Foundation. He felt strongly that there needed to be a community foundation to serve the Fayetteville area. So we set about developing that, and Ann was on that board originally, and Hayden was involved, and so many people. But John co-chaired that organization, and we got off the ground in 2003 with a nominal grant from the Reynolds Foundation and nothing in the bank except for that. By 2009, it had grown to a foundation of close to $2 million. At that point, we were invited to affiliate with the Arkansas Community Foundation. Since that time, it's grown to the point that it's now a $5 million foundation. Last year, it made grants in the community of over $1 million. That's an example of John's vision. He knew that there were charitable needs then and arising in the future in the community, and that the community foundation could help to meet many of those charitable needs. But that, to me, that was a wonderful example of his looking so far in the future and insisting that these kind of things get done. He was a voracious reader, as everybody knows, and I think that accounted for his knowledge. He was always learning, always wanted new ideas, always wanted to be involved in those kinds of adventures. He was a dreamer, and that's why so many good things have happened for the community.
Drew? I was asked by Tim to talk specifically about John and the Northwest Arkansas Council, and I guess I'm kind of the third choice for doing that. Uvalde, who really ought to be here making this part of the presentation, couldn't be here, and Mike Malone's too young. They needed more maturity on the on the panel. Mike, when the council was formed 21 or 2 years ago, Mike was still in high school, I guess, or junior high somewhere. But anyway, I first got to know John back in the 70s through my involvement in my famous Uncle Dale's politics, mainly through my friend Hayden and our mutual friend Paul Berry, who many of you know, who was a dear friend of John's. And so I got to know John through politics in the 70s, but never really worked with him until 1991, when I moved to Northwest Arkansas to go to work for Tyson Foods, about the same time that the Northwest Arkansas Council was being organized. And I worked closely with John on that project, which has turned out to be very important for our region. All of you know about the council. It was kind of the brainchild of Sam Walton and Don Tyson and J.B. Hunt. Sam told Alice she was going to be the chairman of the council, and she did what her daddy directed her to, and provided great leadership. But John's role with the council was kind of be the leader of the Fayetteville contingent of the council. And as everyone knows, John was known as Mr. Fayetteville. But the key to the council's success was to promote regionalism and to make everybody understand that what's good for the region is good for Fayetteville too. And it was through John's leadership, bringing the Fayetteville contingent into the Northwest Arkansas Council, that enabled us to work on the projects that the council did initially related to highways and of course the airport. And all of you, or a lot of you, remember the battle over getting the Northwest Arkansas Regional Airport Authority created, and the efforts to undo that, which required a vote by all 5 of the cities and the 2 counties in 1992. And John and other folks in Fayetteville, like my brother-in-law Woody Bassett, who was on the city council at that time and led the effort to get the Northwest Arkansas Regional Airport Authority created and up and running, led to XNA, which we all are very proud of. But during that time in the early 90s, there was a lot of concern about Drake Field and the impact there. And John, as Hugh said, was a visionary. He knew that we needed more than Drake Field to make this region succeed, and he helped lead the effort to get that done here in Fayetteville, which was very important. I think one of the keys to John's leadership, a trait that he had that is very important, I think, to any leaders, was his ability to network. Somebody already mentioned networking. Networking is vital to being a good leader. But John's ability to network and bring people from all walks of life together I think was very important, as well as his listening skills. You know, a lot of so-called leaders are not very good listeners. They're good at making speeches and telling people what to do and what have you, but they don't listen well. But John was a great leader, great listener, which I think led to his ability to be a great leader. Proud to have called him a friend, and happy to be here today.
Thank you very much. It's nice. I see Louise is writing as she
Well, I want to capture all these great descriptions of John. There's so many ways to describe him. It's probably unending, really. And so I probably ought to start from a little bit different perspective, and that as a newcomer. And I moved here with my family and my husband and my daughter in the early 90s. It was, for me, I got here in January 20th, 1993. That was the same year Bill Clinton was inaugurated. And my husband had already been here. And it became very apparent. Well, first of all, I want to say I was fairly young back in those days. I was in my early 40s. And it was very apparent immediately that Fayetteville was a very, very precious place. Very special. And it was special because of the people and the land and a certain ethic around keeping it special. And then a vision for something where it could be more than what it was. So very, very special. And the center of that specialness as a newcomer was, I kept hearing this name, John Lewis. And so it was very clear. I'd never heard the term Father of Fayetteville, but I understand now why that is such an important way to describe him. And he was definitely a civic father. But most importantly, what I want to say is that we moved to Fayetteville. It was clearly special. And we ended up, my husband and I, attending a talk. And it was a talk that John gave. I don't remember the title of it, but it was one of those talks. And it was open to the community. It was held at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship here in Fayetteville. We walked into this thing, didn't know anyone there, and there was this man talking about why Fayetteville was special. And he talked about the history of Fayetteville. He talked about what made it special. He talked about the importance of making it a even more livable city. And he, in that talk, I don't know how he did it. That's part of what I know we really want to capture, I don't know how he did it. But my husband and I were instantly engaged. It was almost as if he gave us a call to action. And I know we were not the only people in that audience that day that felt that way. There were a lot of newcomers, a lot of people coming in the early 90s, and he had an effect on us. And so I did get very much involved in a number of organizations and helped found a nonprofit organization that was dedicated to planned growth and keeping Fayetteville a special place, and many other aspects, including historic preservation. And I ended up serving on a committee with John to help save the Ozark Theater. And one of the things I learned about John in that time was that he did not hammer a political agenda. He didn't live that political agenda and push it onto people. He was always open to new ideas. So he was first welcoming to new people and new ideas. And I didn't experience that everywhere. I didn't. And you know, I'm just a diehard improver. It doesn't matter if it's an organization or a community, whatever it is, I just want to see it improve. And John didn't shut me out. I mean, he was welcoming to those ideas, and that made all the difference as a newcomer. And as I work with different organizations in a volunteer capacity, I really came to know a lot of people and a lot more about Fayetteville. And when the position at the Fayetteville Public Library as director became available, I applied. And not that I was a librarian, but I'd never been in the public environment. I'd always worked in corporate and a little bit in academic, but I'd never done public. But it was definitely that initial push from John, I think, that got me engaged and encouraged me to be there. And I wasn't close friends with John. I think people, the rest of you all maybe on the panel, knew him better than I did. But when I started at the library, I gave him a call early on, and I said, I don't know if you remember the Fayetteville Public Library then, it wasn't in the greatest of shape. And so it was a perfect project for me. And I was cleaning, there was a lot to clean out at the library and in the administrative offices, and I put my hand in the drawer one day and found some checks that hadn't been cashed in a long time. And so it was, you know, there had been hadn't been a director in place for a number of months, and so anyway, I called John because one of those checks was written by the Bank of Fayetteville. It was a donation, $500, which was a lot of money for the library at that time. And I said, John, I have this check, and it's not been cashed. What should I do? And he said, well, just return it to the bank. And he didn't offer to write another one. And it was given for a donation. I mean, it was given for an event, to support an event. And he didn't he didn't offer to write a new one. And I didn't know what to do. And I've actually spent the last, how many years is it? I don't know. I started in 97, so however many years, I have wondered ever since 1997 why he didn't offer to write another check, because I always saw him as a very generous person. And I really think that the message in all of that was, I needed to learn to ask. But it didn't hit me really until I had to think about this. Didn't really hit me. I needed to learn to ask. And being in the public environment and running a public institution that needed a lot of help, you need to learn to ask. And so, but the support that John gave to the library was extraordinary. And I don't think that library would have been there without his support, and of course the support of many, many, many other people, but John was absolutely instrumental. He responded to a great vision, and the community developed a great vision. The board, the staff, all the hundreds and hundreds of people that attended public meetings created a great vision, and John supported that. And he supported it in a way that was quiet, and behind the scenes, and also in terms of also in taking leadership roles. So many stories to tell. Probably the one that was most important to me was that a few months after I started the library, we expanded the hours. The city had given the library a little more money to expand hours. And if you remember, there were no evening hours, no Sunday hours. And so we had a little press conference, and in those days, nobody ever came to those kinds of things in the library. And who do you think showed up at that press conference in the front of the library? John Lewis. And that meant everything, because Father Fayetteville was there, and everything would be okay. John, to me, was someone who didn't have a lot of splash. He wasn't splashy. And yet he inspired people to do great things, and he did so in a way that was above the fray. I never experienced a time with John, and maybe you all have, but I never experienced a time with John when he badmouthed people. I only experienced from him his delight in a great vision, his desire to grease the wheels and make things happen in very quiet ways, to give advice, to push also his own technology agenda, and really in a wonderful way was, and still is in many ways, a civic father to Fayetteville. He had a precious, precious gift. And if we can figure out a way to extend that into the future, I think that And of course, this will always be, even though I don't live here right now, this will always be my community. I think that Fayetteville will just continue to be more and more awesome. Having been gone a year, it is extraordinary to see what you all have done in that year. It's just amazing to see all the good things. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you for those wonderful stories. I think that one of the things that's obvious in the stories, and we tell stories about John and about his leadership, and I think quickly before we kind of open up the floor, I think that one of the things that John always did is he encouraged, even though all of us would like to fill his shoes, we all know, and we have tried, that it's impossible. But one of the things that John always encouraged us to do is be our own leader, be our own person, and be the best that we could be in that. So I'm wondering if you could briefly tell a little bit about how you feel that John helped you grow personally as a leader.
Well, I will, again, I'll start. Each time I had a major decision regarding which path to take in my professional career, he provided that listening and helped me reach my conclusion. And so I can't say other than there were only 3 times, and each time I'd say, you know, I could go here, I could go there, there's my path, or I could stay, whatever it was. And he would just listen, and then I would meander to that, you know, that place that he knew already he was going to tell me, but it happened that way. So I'm not sure if that makes sense, but I wanted to say it. The listening component was what I think really helped me grow.
And do you feel like you take that with you and do that for others?
I sure try. It's I mean, I do try. But I think in my career, the one thing that I guess I am proud of that I try to do for others, I manage a lot of people, and so I have the opportunity to help others grow, and that is the most rewarding piece of what I am allowed to do in my career. So yes, I do carry it with me. I have to tell a quick little story about the listening piece, because John was just so fascinated by everything that was going on in the technology world. And when he would just be bored or something, I suppose, I'd get this phone call. Susan, it's time. We need to sit down and we need to figure out what to do. And so it's like, okay, I wonder what that means. So we'd get together and he'd ask me to tell stories about things that I'd experienced in the position I was in and places I got to go, because I did. I was able to participate a lot on the national scene in the emerging technologies, and he always wanted to hear about it. He was fascinated every time, and then he would, after that meeting, decide, okay, now here's what we're going to do. And it usually involved young people and trying to get them opportunities to participate.